The Inferno Wedding. A wedding is supposed to be the start of a new life, a celebration of love, of family, of a future together, right? But what happens when that celebration turns into a literal inferno? When the symbol of your new beginning becomes a burning tomb? On the night of September 26th, 2023, in the town of Qaraqosh, Iraq, a young Christian couple stood on the dance floor of the Al-Haitham Wedding Hall. They were surrounded by hundreds of their friends and family, ready for their first dance as husband and wife. As the music started, 4 large indoor fireworks were lit around them, sending showers of sparks up toward the ceiling. It was meant to be a spectacular moment, a grand romantic gesture. It was a death sentence. The sparks ignited the highly flammable decorations and composite panels on the ceiling. Within seconds, the entire roof was on fire. Flaming debris rained down on the dancing guests. The hall filled with thick, toxic smoke. Panic erupted. People screamed, stampeded, desperate to escape the inferno. But the exits were few and poorly marked. Many were trapped, crushed in the stampede, or overcome by the smoke. Survivors described a scene from hell. Bodies piled up near the doors, people on fire stumbling through the dark. The bride and groom miraculously survived, but they lost everything. The bride lost 10 members of her immediate family, including her father and brother. The groom lost 15 of his relatives. In total, around 100 people were killed, and another 150 were injured. The wedding hall, a place of joy just moments before, was now a charred, smoking ruin, littered with the bodies of their loved ones. The owner of the hall and several staff members were arrested, but for the bride and groom, there was no justice, no comfort. Their wedding day, the happiest day of their lives, was now a day of mass death, a memory of fire and screams that will haunt them forever. Fabio, Jefferson, dos Santos, Maciel. Sometimes the most painful deaths are the most absurd. The ones that come from nowhere, caused by something so small, so insignificant that it's almost laughable. Almost. In December 2016, Fabio Jefferson dos Santos Maciel, a 33-year-old sergeant in the Brazilian Navy, was on a beach in Brazil celebrating his wedding to his partner, Pérez. It was a perfect night. A beachfront reception, 200 guests, music, dancing. Around 2 a.m., Fabio was on the sand, joking around, play fighting with a bridesmaid. He was happy. He was in love. He was a little drunk. And he had a beer glass in his pocket. He tripped. A simple, clumsy fall in the sand. But as he went down, the beer glass in his trouser pocket shattered. The shards drove deep into his upper thigh, near his groin. At first, it didn't seem serious. A cut, a bit of blood. But then the blood started gushing. The broken glass had severed his femoral artery, one of the largest blood vessels in the body. The party turned into a frantic, desperate attempt to save his life. Guests rushed to his side, trying to apply pressure to stop the bleeding. But it was too late. He was losing blood too fast. He bled out on the sand, surrounded by his wedding guests, his new wife watching in horror. He was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. Fabio Jefferson dos Santos Maciel went from a groom to a corpse in a matter of minutes. His wedding night became his death night, all because of a beer glass in his pocket, a tiny, stupid detail that turned a celebration into a bloodbath. Pérez was a bride and a widow on the same day. A day that was supposed to be the beginning of their life together became the end of his. The collapsing dance floor. This next one is the stuff of nightmares. A literal, the floor falls out from under you moment, caught on camera for the whole world to see. On May 24, 2001, in Jerusalem, Israel, Karen and Asaf Dror were celebrating their wedding at the Versailles Wedding Hall. It was a massive party, with around 700 guests packed into the third-floor ballroom. The music was loud, the energy was high, and hundreds of people were on the dance floor, jumping and dancing in unison. And then they heard a crack. Suddenly, without warning, the entire central section of the dance floor gave way. It simply vanished. A huge slab of concrete, along with hundreds of dancing guests, plunged 3 stories into the basement below. Tables, chairs, band equipment, and entire families disappeared into a cloud of dust and debris. One moment, you're celebrating a wedding. The next, you're in a free fall, surrounded by screaming people and collapsing concrete. Rescue teams worked through the night, pulling bodies and survivors from the rubble. The scene was apocalyptic. 23 people were killed, including the groom's 80-year-old grandfather and a 3-year-old second cousin. Hundreds more were injured. The bride, Karen, survived, but with severe pelvic injuries that required surgery. She woke up in a hospital bed, a bride without a wedding, a wife whose family had been decimated. An investigation later revealed the cause, a combination of shoddy construction and illegal modifications. The building used a cheap, dangerous flooring system called Pal-Cal, and the owners had removed a structural wall to create more space. The engineers and owners were eventually convicted of negligence, but the damage was done. The Versailles Wedding Hall disaster became one of Israel's worst civil tragedies, a national trauma forever immortalized by the chilling video of a dance floor turning into a mass grave. The Ambushed Bride. This one reads like the final scene of a mob movie. A wedding, a beautiful bride, a groom with a dark past, and a hail of bullets. In the early hours of June 22, 2025, in the small village of Goult in southeastern France, a 27-year-old bride and her new husband were leaving their wedding reception. They had celebrated with family and friends, and now, around 4:30 a.m., they were getting into a car with the groom's sister and a 13-year-old child. The bride was still in her wedding dress. As they pulled away, their car was ambushed. Masked gunmen opened fire, riddling the vehicle with bullets. The bride was hit multiple times and died at the scene. The groom, his sister, and the child were all seriously injured. In the chaos, the driver of the car, trying to escape the ambush, ran over one of the attackers, killing him instantly. When the police arrived, they found a surreal, gruesome scene. A dead bride in a blood-soaked wedding dress. A dead gunman lying in the street. And a wedding venue littered with abandoned decorations and shell casings. The investigation quickly pointed to a settling of scores. The groom, it turned out, had a criminal record and was known to be involved in the local drug trade. The ambush was likely a targeted hit, a message from a rival gang. The bride was just collateral damage. She was a woman who had just married the man she loved, who was looking forward to a new life, a new future. And she was gunned down in her wedding dress because her husband had made some very dangerous enemies. The double heart attack. This next story is weird. It's a medical mystery wrapped in a tragedy, a wedding night that ends with a question mark that will probably never be answered. On May 30th, 2023, in a small village in Uttar Pradesh, India, a young couple, Pratap Yadav, 22, and Pushpa, 20, were married. It was a typical rural Indian wedding, full of color, music, and celebration. After the festivities, the newlyweds retired to their room for their first night as husband and wife. The next morning, they didn't emerge. Concerned relatives knocked on the door. No answer. They forced the door open and found Pratap and Pushpa lying dead in the room. There were no signs of a struggle, no obvious injuries, no suicide note. Just 2 young, healthy people, dead on their wedding night. The police were called and the bodies were sent for a post-mortem. The results were baffling. Both Pratap and Pushpa had died of heart attacks. Simultaneous heart attacks. A 22-year-old man and a 20-year-old woman, both dying of cardiac arrest at the same time in the same room on their wedding night. The odds are astronomical. The local community was stunned. Rumors flew. Was it poison? Was it a curse? Was it the stress and excitement of the wedding? The police found no evidence of foul play. The official cause of death remained simultaneous heart attacks. The couple was cremated on the same funeral pyre, a final, tragic symbol of their inseparable and inexplicable fate. It's a story that feels like a dark folktale, a cursed wedding, a supernatural event. But the reality is probably more mundane, and in some ways, more terrifying. Two young people, at the peak of their health, their hearts just stopped, together, on the one night that was supposed to be the beginning of their everything. Candy, Nohemi, Pérez. Our last story is about a death that happened just before the wedding, but it's so tragically on theme that we had to include it. It's about a bride-to-be, a wedding invitation, and a freak piece of flying metal. In December 2024, in Guatemala, a 21-year-old woman named Candy Nohemi Pérez was preparing for her wedding to her fiancé, Kevin Miranda. They were a young couple in love, excited to start their life together. And they were doing something that feels almost quaint in our digital age. They were hand-delivering their wedding invitations. They spent the day riding their motorbike through local communities, personally handing out invitations to their friends and family. It was a day of joy, of anticipation, of sharing their happiness with the people they loved. But on a roadway near the San Cayetano farm, that joy came to a sudden, violent end. As they rode alongside a large truck, a heavy piece of the truck's transmission suddenly broke off and flew through the air. The metal bar, weighing several pounds, slammed into their motorbike. The impact threw Candy from the bike, and she hit the road with lethal force. She was killed instantly. Kevin was badly injured, but survived. The photos from the scene are heartbreaking. The mangled motorbike, the heavy gray metal bar lying in the road, and the wedding invitations scattered across the asphalt. Candy Nohemi Pérez died while literally holding the invitations to her own wedding. She was a bride-to-be, a woman on the cusp of her new life, killed by a random, meaningless piece of flying metal. Her fiancé Kevin was left a widower before he could even become a husband. It's a story that's almost too cruel to be real, a reminder that sometimes the universe is just cruel.